What happens to us after we die? Do we cease to exist, or do we live on? This may be the biggest question that mankind has ever asked, as well as what this podcast is about. In this show, we will examine past life memories, speak with professional hypnotherapists, astral projection practitioners, psychics, and much more, all in an attempt to decipher this riddle. So welcome to the puzzle. Welcome to the regression session. Welcome back to the regression session. My name is Ian, and this week, I'm very tired. Having a toddler and a newborn is quite exhausting, as I'm sure many of you know. But hey, I'm still popping out content for you guys, so yay me. This week, we're going to be hearing from Brittany Porter, and Brittany is an oracle card reader. She's a Reiki healer, an energy healer, an Akashic Records reader, just anything energy reading. Brittany's the one to talk to. So after this, definitely head on over to her website, which is soulharmonyhealing.as.me. Links to all of her social medias, links to her website, links to her YouTube channel are all going to be in the description. So head on over after this. I'm excited for this episode because, again, we kind of talk about anything energy healing, and we try to get into the more scientific side if that's even possible. But we gave it a go anyway. So I'm excited for you guys to hear this. If you want to come onto the podcast to share your stories about your past life experiences or your knowledge on any metaphysical topic, shoot me an email. My email is theregressionsession@gmail.com. You can also head on over to my Facebook, my Twitter. Follow me there. I've been trying to post some bonus content, as well as all of my show updates and stuff are going to be posted on there. So head on over. You can interact with me there as well. I welcome messages and emails. So here is my conversation with Brittany. Hey, Brittany, thanks for coming on to the show.
Hey, Ian, thank you so much for having me today. I'm super excited to do this podcast with you.
I'm excited about it too. And like I was saying, if you don't mind just giving us a little bit of background, a little bit of context as to your journey here, whatever you're comfortable sharing, and then why we're talking.
Sure. Okay. So my name is Brittany Porter, and I do a lot of things. I am a Akashic Record reader. I am a Reiki practitioner. I also offer life coaching or soul coaching, if you will. And so a little bit of my background, I'll just do the big moments of my life that helped get me here. So I grew up in a very Christian household, and nothing against Christianity. But I grew up in a very Christian household, a lot of constructual, societal things in that. And I was also homeschooled until 9th grade. And so I did not have a lot of interaction with people. And so when I was 13, I told my grandparents who raised me, I said, hey, I want to go to school. I want to go to public school. And they fought me on it, but eventually I won. I stood my ground and I started going to school. And it was a huge adjustment for me being around that many people. And I had a lot of social anxiety. I had a lot of self-confidence, self-esteem issues, which caused a lot of anxiety and depression in my life. I also suffered from a lot of trauma as a child. And so that had rollover effects later into my life. So after I left high school, I went and studied psychology and received my degree in psychology. And I did a lot of work in the mental health arena. And then after that, I owned a business for 7 years. I owned a doggy daycare. I know that's really random. I have a huge passion for animals. I love them so much, especially dogs. I had so much fun in that chapter of my life, but I found that that wasn't really resonating with me on a soul level. I really wanted to help people. So I did little things here and there along the way. And then my friend introduced me to the Akashic Records. I didn't know what they were. And so I read a book about it and I said, oh, I have been doing this for my whole life. I didn't realize that I had already been tapping into people's Akashic records. And so when I started to practice intentionally with people, by leveling up, grew immensely. And then I started practicing on as many people as I could. And now I do it for a living. And so that is why we're here on the podcast today, to talk about the Akashic records.
Yeah, that's great. And thanks for going over that. So I just kind of want to jump right back into where we left off. And I was like, oh, hey, we should probably record. I do that all the time, by the way. I'll start recording, or like I'll start recording and I'll be like, or I won't be recording at all. And then we'll get into talking. I'll be like, oh, damn, I should have recorded all that stuff. Anyway, we were talking about Reiki, because you're a Reiki practitioner as well. And I asked you a question about distance. So if you don't mind repeating yourself about that, I'm sorry to ask you to do that, but if you could repeat yourself about what you said about the distance, you mentioned electromagnetic fields and stuff like that. That would be fantastic.
Sure. Okay. So Reiki, if anybody's wondering, is channeling life force energy to provide healing for yourself or healing for others. And so with Reiki, a lot of times people say, does it work by distance or by remote? And from my understanding, what I've seen in my practice and other practitioners is it does work remotely. However, it is going to be more potent if you are in the same room with someone, because your electromagnetic fields are intermingling with one another. Now, as far as remotely, it still works because Reiki spans across all space, time, and dimensions. And so if I want to tap into your energy body, I go through the astral and etheric planes and tap in that way.
All right. So my next question about that is, like, are there any like scientific-ish studies that have shown Reiki working or shown energy fields being manipulated in any way?
I can give you like a roundabout about that, because I don't know if Reiki has necessarily been studied itself, but are you familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza?
Yes. Vaguely.
So he is a very famous scientist who blends spirituality and metaphysics with science. And so in his book, Becoming Supernatural, he talks about how there was this group meditation that was done with about 1 million people one day. And the intention of the meditation was to help reduce crime in this certain area. And so they were running a big experiment. And what they found was that it was reduced by 33% by them holding the intention of reducing crime. And so there have been a lot of studies about intentions and it changing reality. And are you familiar with the double slit experiment?
I actually am familiar with that one.
Great.
Yes,
okay.
I learned about that in 7th grade.
Yes. And so it's been shown that if you point your intention and adjust your like observation of, energy, it will change the matter around you. And per how strong your intentions are, it can change matter.
Well, not only that, it also shows that matter reacts differently whether or not it's being observed.
Yes.
Which is crazy, by the way. And that's a legit study. Anybody, I'll link. I'm gonna link that in the description. I think it's called the double slit, right?
Yes, the double slit experiment. And there's lots of videos on YouTube, but it breaks down beautifully how Reiki works. I know it's a roundabout, but that's a good way to break down the physics of it for people.
Okay. Yeah, there's been a few experiments similar to that. One of them that I've heard of is there's like a rice experiment. And I think this experiment was done by like a 14-year-old girl at one point, where she just wanted to see if it affected anything.
Mm-hmm.
But basically the experiment breaks out, and I've talked about this before in other episodes, but you get some rice, right? You fill a rice or a container with rice and water. You put them in the same room. You keep the temperature consistent.
Mm-hmm.
You just put them in like different corners of the room or whatever. So then you go to the first one and you say like beautiful things. So like, you're so pretty. You're so wonderful. I love you. And then you go to the middle one, or you just completely leave the middle one alone. And then the third one, you'll go over and you say, you're ugly. I hate you. You're disgusting. Just like horrible things to it. And what they've found is that the first one, where you speak positively, will begin to ferment into basically like sake. Mm-hmm. The middle one won't really change that much. There might be like a little bit of, like the green mold getting on it after a certain amount of time. And then the last one will turn like black and disgusting.
Mm.
And so there have been other experiments to show that. I'm going to try that experiment actually and see how it works.
I have seen that done time. I've never seen the rice before. That's very interesting. I have some rice, might have to try it too. But for the plants, there have been studies done over and over and over again about how if you positively talk to plants, they will thrive, and then you negatively speak to them and then they wither away. Yeah. I know that one's been done over and over and over and over again. And so it makes sense if you're into energy, if you're projecting positive energy towards something. We are all, in my opinion, and a lot of science shows this too, that we are all energy solidified down into matter. And so we are always picking up different frequencies off of people and different things. And so you interacting with someone like that, like if you're speaking negatively towards me, it is going to change my physiology. It can even change your thoughts and how you think about yourself. And then you start to get anxiety, and then the anxiety starts to cause stress and cortisol to come up in your body. And it can really change your physiology, the way that somebody interacts with you like that, just by sheer words or intentions.
Yeah, even the way that you talk to yourself. Like, stress will kill you. And, this brings up a question to me of like, is it real, or is it a placebo effect? That's the main question that I would probably ask if I was going to play devil's advocate and say, I don't believe in this stuff. It's like, is it a placebo effect? But plants are not like as conscious as we are. And we affect them with our intentions like that. So is it a placebo effect?
And I've had to ask myself that before, like, are all of these things that I'm interested in doing, am I consuming things to solidify my own narratives? Because I also like playing devil's advocate. And so in saying that, I have had so many experiences in my life that have told me and have shown me how this works for people. And I'll give you some examples. So with me reading the records or doing Reiki, what I'm doing when I'm doing Reiki is I am going into a specific chakra and then asking what the chakra wants to tell me. And I can pull up memories that person has never told me before. From childhood, traumas that they have lived through, just things that you would not be aware of unless you specifically told me, right? And so the way that magic works, if we want to call it magic or like energy healing or whatever you want to call it, you really have to start trusting in your intuition and using discernment, like you said. That's very important as well. But I have found in my life and a lot of other people's lives too, that this is real. And I think a lot of what reality is what you believe in, is what is real for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, so when I was younger, like high school age, there was like and the whole, if for the TLDR version of this, like if you don't want to listen to my back sob story for anybody listening, just skip ahead a little bit. It's fine. But like when I was in high school, right, the whole I guess a big picture story of what I'm about to talk about is how you can change your own story and affect your own life.
Mm-hmm.
So I was super depressed in high school for whatever reason. Um, I don't know why, but there was like a whole 2 year stretch of time where I wouldn't even look at myself in the mirror at all. I would avoid any reflective surfaces. And I'm not saying this to like have a pity party. What I'm saying is I had a problem and I didn't seek help. So, as a side note, if you're depressed and you have a problem, please seek help.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, um, for whatever reason, one day I decided that I was going to look myself like dead ass in the eyes in the mirror and then just smile at myself. And I did it. And I was like, okay, that wasn't so bad, but I still don't want to do that. But then I challenged myself to do that once a day, every day. So I would wake up first thing in the morning and smile at myself. And then it got to the point where I started doing it like maybe if I walked past the window, I would look at myself and smile. Or if I was washing my hands in the bathroom and I saw myself in the mirror and I would smile. And then it got to the point where pretty much every time I saw myself in the mirror or reflective surface, I would just give myself this dorky smile. And what was really, really strange about it was it changed. Like, I credit that with basically saving my life because I changed. Like, it's weird to talk about for people who don't know what I'm talking about, but I changed my story, right? I changed, like, I instead of saying I hate you and I don't want to look at you, it's like I'm gonna smile at you and be happy, even if I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretending. And that changed my whole outlook on life just started to slowly shift. So you can change your own story, and it is real, regardless of whether or not it is a placebo effect.
I thank you for sharing that. That was a beautiful story. And then a testament that you really can change your life. And I am a big proponent of your thoughts create your reality. Your thoughts and how you speak to yourself and your internal state, that is your outer reality. That is your internal state projected outside of you. And so, following up with what you said, I had a lot of self-confidence and self-esteem issues for myself. And I meet people now and they say, I would have never thought that. There was a time where I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I could not take pictures of myself. Like, I just really did not like seeing what was outside of me reflected back because it was what was going on in my internal state. And so what I did too, like yourself, I had to make a conscious decision to do something different, to change my outer reality. And so I started voice noting every single person in my life, and I forced myself to listen to every single one of them for 6 months. And what I found was I started falling in love with my voice and my inflections and how I talk. And then I realized, like, oh, by speaking out loud, people can hear my intentions. And then I started recording myself and I was forcing myself to look at myself. And I got used to the way I looked. And then I started to fall in love with the way I looked. And I like an egotistical, but like getting used to seeing myself that way. And like you, it sounds like you did a soul retrieval. Like you went into the mirror and went inside and said, I'm going to help everyone in here, all the past versions of yourself. Like you were able to pop off as your higher self and say, like, this is not working what we're doing right now. I'm going to take the reins and I'm going to fix what's happening and heal all of us. And that is absolutely beautiful. And look now. But sometimes you have to make that conscious decision that what's going on in my paradigm is not working and I need to make a shift.
Yeah, it literally can be as simple as smiling at yourself in the mirror every day,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, just like some little ritual. And before we move on to the next thing, I actually saw one of your videos on like rewinding a little bit. I saw one of your videos on Reddit when I was just like scrolling by, and you were doing like Reiki, and I didn't have, and this was before like we got in contact at all, and I saw you, and you're just like Reiki to have a better day or something, and like it was really weird because I was like, yeah, whatever, and then you started doing it, and I started to feel better. It was weird. I was like, whoa. I was like, that's kind of strange because I didn't necessarily, I don't like fully buy into like anything, or I try not to. But like I was just like, oh wow, yeah, I'm feeling like I'm having a pretty good day now. It was kind of weird. So I just thought like we were talking about Reiki and distance. I wanted to validate you and say like, yeah, for whatever reason, when I saw that, it actually made me feel better. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I did want to say one thing with that. So, do you know when you go to the movies and you watch something that's very, very sad, or you watch something that's violent and like elicits like really strong emotions in your body? That is you feeling that person's intention for what they want you to feel. And so it is transverse the same with Reiki. And so like when you were watching my Reiki video, I had created an energetic space of wanting people to feel better when they come to watch the video. And so it's not necessarily having to do anything to you. You're just stepping into my energy field in that timestamp. And I'm holding the intention of you feeling better, and you're feeling the effects of that. Just like if you were watching like a comedy movie and you went to go get some good laughs, you're feeling the other person's intention of wanting to make you laugh.
I mean, that's like the far in, like the I'm all in explanation too. You know what I mean? It could be like as simple as like the title primed me to expect that, and it happened. And again, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of busting your balls here, but
oh no, like I said, I'm a big proponent of your discernment for things, especially when people are like trying to work in your energy and body. And you're right, that might have been your own subconscious that made you have a better day just from the title. You're right, it might not even be the Reiki, it might be you mirroring back to have a good day.
I always say this.
Either way.
I'm gonna make t-shirts. I swear to God, I'm gonna make t-shirts. I say this in every episode because I just can't stop. Regardless of what, it's like everybody say it with me. Regardless of whether or not it's real, it's still a real experience.
Oh, I love that.
Same thing with this stuff. Regardless of whether or not it's a placebo effect, it's still having a positive outcome, and that's all that matters. And I talked about this with Dr. Bruce Kowalski recently in one of my episodes, where he was like, you know, a common technique in like just talk therapy is what's called psychomatic drama or psychodrama or something like that, where you will play out a conversation and do that, and like just like have back and forth with yourself and tell the other person that you're pretending to be how you feel, and then respond how you think that they would respond. And it works. The same kind of a thing. It's regardless of whether or not you're not talking to the real person, but it makes you feel better because you get it off your chest. Same thing, you know, regardless of whether or not it's real, it's still a real experience. Trademark the Regression Session podcast.
I will buy a t-shirt when you get those going.
Oh yeah. Yes. Oh yeah, that's what I need.
Yes.
Anyway, the next question I have is, I have pretty recently started to work with the chakras, and I use hypnosis to do this because I'm not a medium. I do not have, I have aphantasia, which makes anything like that really difficult because I can't see anything in my own head. I can't hear anything in my own head. It's just dark and quiet. So I'm not a medium, but I use hypnosis to help people kind of try to work on these blocks, and they can kind of intuitively tell me like where they're feeling like either too much energy or not enough energy. And what I was curious about is, how does that work for you? You said that you can go into someone's chakras or their energy vortexes basically and pull stuff out. Like, how does that work? What's going on there?
Okay, so what I do when I'm in Reiki sessions, so I like to work with crystals a lot too. And I just had this conversation with someone else, and they said, why did you use specific crystals for specific chakras? Because what I'll do is I'll lay out a crystal grid and one representing each one of them. And I say, what I do is when I tap into your energy body, I am a conduit for your chakra to talk to the crystals, and they have a conversation and decide who is going to pair up with who. And the crystals help amplify the energy. And so what I do is I will take a pause. Let's say I'm going into your root chakra, and I'll close my eyes, and then I set the intention to step inside that energy vortex inside of your energy body. And so when I'm in there, I will say, hey, is there anything that you want help with? Is there anything that I can put in here etherically to help balance you out or to bring you healing? And then the chakra will either show me a memory, they'll show me a past life, they'll show me any co-currently running timelines. There's so many different things that will show up, but I have the clear gift of feeling what is going on. So when you say that you don't see images in your head, I don't see images in my head either. I feel the images, if that makes sense. And then I also am an empath, so I can step into your energy body and feel the feelings that you're feeling. So if you're experiencing grief or sorrow or intense anger or sadness, I can feel that emotion inside of my body. And so that helps me convey to the person what is going inside there. And then what I do is some Reiki practitioners will do all the work on their end and then get back with the person what came up. When I do Reiki sessions, it's a co-collaboration. And so we are talking the whole time I'm in there, so we can work out and talk out what is going on, kind of like what you talked about with the talk therapy. And so that way I am more of a conduit just to tell you what's in there, and you're actually doing the work to bring the healing.
So something that's really interesting, and people don't really realize this a lot. Like when you're talking about crystals, a year ago, I'd have been like, yeah, you're full of shit. Crystals. They're like, what are you talking about? But what people don't realize is that humans are energy conduits. You can connect, like, just think about static electricity, right? If you build up enough static electricity, your body will transfer that and you'll create a spark or a shock. Same thing, like if you were like, let's just say you grabbed onto a power line and you had your arm extended and you were being like electrocuted to death. If somebody touched you, they would also get electrocuted to death because your body will transport that energy. So we are energy conduits. And another thing that people don't really realize is that NASA uses crystals to direct radio waves. Like it's legit. Like I was blown away when I found that out. So crystals also help focus energy, and they're used in machinery and things to direct radio waves. So it doesn't surprise me that it works. The main question I have is, why do different ones work differently, and how did people figure that out?
That's a good question. I don't know the whole backstory because crystals actually, that's something newer to me, is working with crystals. And so that has been a journey for me over the last 2 years. So that's something I'm still researching more of myself. I know that they all resonate on different frequencies based on the density of the crystals. And so just like us, we resonate differently with one another, because like if I've experienced a lot of trauma and I've done a lot of healing, I'm going to resonate with different people, right? And then if I have a lot of anger inside of me and I'm a very angry person, I resonate with different type of people. It's the same thing with the crystals. And you are like your frequency is denser the more trauma and things that you're holding on to and haven't healed through. And so when that comes up out of you, your frequency is lighter. And so even then you would resonate with different crystals as you go throughout your life and are resonating on different frequencies.
Very, very interesting. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I'll have to circle back to this in a future episode once I do some more research. I don't like talking about things that I haven't studied or looked up, because what I found is nobody wants to listen to some random dude talk about something that he doesn't know anything about.
Yeah, no, and that's totally understandable. However, if you do work with crystals and you have seen that for yourself, like there are going to be people that hear you about your experience working with crystals and understand from that level.
And that's true. So, anyway, circling back to the episode, I would like to talk to you about the Akashic records.
Yes.
Now, that is, in my opinion, and I could be a complete ignorant ass about this, but in my opinion, the word Akashic records is basically just like a pop culture term, but you could refer to it as like anything, like the astral library. You could refer to it as whatever. It could literally be anything, but people just tend to, as like a pop culture thing, to easily reference it. It's kind of assumed this term of Akashic records. And I think that Dolores Cannon, are you familiar with Dolores Cannon at all?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that she was accessing this same thing, but she didn't really call it the Akashic records when she was first starting, or maybe even at all. She has so many books that I still have yet to read. So I don't know if she ever started calling it the Akashic records. But yeah, that's basically what it is for anybody like that's not familiar with it. It's basically, from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, it is like the library that records everything that has, is, or ever will happen.
Okay, so with me reading records, what I have found is that it can be broken down really to a soul record, like a record of your soul. And so there is like a collective Akashic record. You can call that like the unifying field. It goes by a lot of different names, like you're saying. When I work with people, what I'm doing is doing a soul retrieval. And so with the records, if you believe in reincarnation, which I do, you have a record or a book, a lot of people like to call it a book, that follows you from reincarnation to reincarnation to reincarnation. So it follows you. So you may be in different avatars, like different bodily forms. It may not even be a body. A lot of people have spent time in different dimensions, different galaxies, different planets. You may have been a plant or an animal or a mythical creature, but it follows you through all of those reincarnations. And so when I work with people and I'm tapping into your records, your guides and the pinnacle, who are the record keepers, they will show you what is going to be most helpful for you in this moment of time. And that might be things that are just going on in your lifetime right now, or that might be something from 10 lifetimes ago that is having a rollover effect into this lifetime, maybe like a karmic cycle or a lesson that you've worked on over and over and over again. So it's really just what has been going on with your soul traveling through the universe as you go along.
Okay, and my next question for you is, what are your thoughts about people saying that anybody can access these records?
I believe that anybody can. It's just a matter, are you ready? Because past lives may not be pertinent for you if you have a lot of trauma or something that you need to work on first here on this plane. Because if you're trying to do all of this backstory back here, it can muddle up what you have going on in the here and now. And so I have noticed that what I can pull for people is how deeply they have gone in to do their own healing for themselves. That is how far back it will let me go. And so if you have a lot of stuff that's like present right now that you're dealing with, sometimes you have to get through that stuff in order to see the stuff from the past or the future timelines. And so I do believe that anyone can access them. You can access them for yourself. You don't have to get a reader, but the records are going to show you the depth at whatever you're ready for right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So are you familiar a lot with like hypnotizing people?
I don't do that myself, but
Okay.
I do some research on it, and I know that
Okay.
you do as well. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about it.
So I have taken people really, 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 really deep into
Mm-hmm.
hypnosis. I've taken people with their consent, by the way, just so that everybody knows.
Yes. They asked you to hypnotize
They
me. Yes.
asked me to do this,
Yes.
and you cannot be hypnotized if you do not want to. And I guess technically they could have woken up at any point, but anyway, I've taken people so deep that they could no longer easily move their outside body.
Mm-hmm.
So like it took so much effort to even lift like a finger. That's how deep into their own mind they were. And they came across this thing, I'll call it. It's the thing likes to be called the being. They like that term, but it's like a collective subconscious mind. And I actually asked about this. I asked about if the person I was hypnotizing could have access and be taken to this library or these records.
Mm-hmm.
And they said no. They said that this collective subconscious mind told me through my subject that no, not everybody can access this.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be either they didn't really get the answer they gave was really confusing, but they're like, no, not everybody can get there. And I asked about, hey, could I get there? And they were like, I don't know, I'd have to check.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what?
Okay.
I was like, okay, check, and I'll try to get back to you, I guess. But so I've heard, and this was from multiple people that
Mm-hmm.
told me this, and then I didn't tell them what happened beforehand either. That they told me no, not everybody can access it. So what's your thoughts on that?
So the being that it sounds like the collective consciousness that is guarding the records, that's who I'm referring to as the pinnacle, or who I'm assuming that those people were referring to. Maybe not. But the pinnacle are the keepers of the records. They're the guardians of the records. And so that's what I mean, that not everybody is ready to access them. I do personally believe everyone can, but sometimes they prevent you from seeing things that you're not ready to see yet. Like there's no sense in telling somebody that they spent time in the angel realm and what that lifetime looked for them if they have a lot of stuff that has not been healed about being like in the metaphysical realm. So like if you have someone that's very, very, very deep into like a religious construct, there's no sense in telling somebody that they have spent time on another dimensional plane. They're just not ready for that information yet. And so I do think everyone has the ability to tap in. It's just at what level are you ready to see how far it goes, future and past. And that sounds like the pinnacle, the record keepers, the guardians saying like, hey, that person may not be ready yet.
Okay. And I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but you said something. You said this a couple times since we've been talking. What you're talking about is people who are trying to heal this life by basically looking everywhere else but this life.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my quote unquote professional opinion and recommendation that before you go diving into past lives, you should be diving into this life first. And I always, anytime someone comes to me asking me to do a regression for them or a spiritual hypnosis for them, ask them, are you taking medication for depression? Are you seeing a therapist? Are you working with a doctor? What kind of treatments have you been doing? What's going on in your life? Are you like, what, tell me what's going on. And if they tell me like, oh, I'm looking for a past life because I had trauma as a kid and I want to figure it out. I'm like, okay, well, that's not really something that you can figure out. Like maybe you could do like the chakra thing where you try to go through and like flush negativity out of your body. But I always recommend going to see a trained mental health professional as well. What's your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree with you. And that's what I mean too about the pinnacle maybe blocking, or for your own good, for you to be able to see stuff. Because if you're trying to figure out what happened to you in a past life, that doesn't necessarily mean that if you access that, that's going to fix all your problems here in this lifetime. Like you still have to get to the root of what happened to you on this life before you can get into information about past ones. It doesn't just magically fix to know. You still have to do the shadow work and heal the trauma. And I agree with you if you also need to have the therapy portion of it as well. Like I can tell you what could have happened to you as even a child, right? But you still have to go through the processes of healing that trauma. So medical professionals, still very important. Medicine, if like you said, if you're on anxiety or depression medication, like that's something that like therapy, you still have to help with that, right? And like it's not going to fix the root of the problem.
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, I had this lady come to me one time and ask me to regress her. First thing I asked was like, why do you want a regression? And they were like, and this is like the ideal situation for me. They're like, I've been in therapy for years. I have been in therapy for years. I have talked this over and I just can't figure out why I am unsatisfied in my life. I need to figure it out. That's why I'm doing this. And I'm like, okay, so check, you're in therapy. Check, you're just looking for something different to help you. I mean, obviously there's people that are like, yeah, I want to explore, right? Like I'm in a good place. I want to just see if it's legit. Like that's the totally different thing. But yeah, thank you for saying that. And agreeing with me. I always like when people agree with me. There's some people out there that don't, and they're like, no, you just have to have good intentions, but I disagree.
Well, and having good intentions is helping people actually work through the trauma that happened. And that's why I also like to blend. I went to school for psychology. And so when I read for people, a lot of times they say, oh, I didn't know this was going to be a therapy session. And I say, yes, I'm going to tell you the information that comes up, but we're going to work through it at the same time and trying to get to the root. Because I find that a lot of times if people are going to readers just to have their energy read and not actually trying to transmute the things, it just puts a Band-Aid on it until the next reader that you see.
Well, what they really, in that case, what they're looking for is they just want to be told what they want to hear. And that's not what a real professional energy worker is going to do. They're not going to tell you what you want to hear. They're probably going to tell you the opposite of what you want to hear.
I find that a lot of times when they say, oh, I didn't know that this was going to go that deep, or that we were going to talk it out and work it out and get to the root of things. And I'm like, that's what's going to help you heal, is to transmute those things and feel those things.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Now, circling back, I know that I jumped down this rabbit hole because it's important to me to get this. I've tried to make this point as often as I can. Do this in combination with traditional therapy and medicine. So anyway, moving away from that, if you don't mind, just for my own curiosity's sake, just walking me through like the process of what happens when, okay, I'm going to sit down with a client. I'm going to do this work. I'm going to look into their Akashic records. Are you okay with talking about like your process and like what that's like?
Sure, I can talk about that. So I have a set ritual that I do every single time because it helps me get into the energetic healing mode, if that makes sense. I kind of put down all of my 3D worldly things that I'm thinking about.
Get into the zone.
Yeah, into the zone. And so what I do is, I always get permission from the other person beforehand. Can I tap into your energy? And I have them sign a bunch of waivers. And so they know that I'm going to be tapping in before we even begin. And so what I do is I'll burn some incense and some sage to help do an energy clearing of my space in my home, in which I do, the remote work, and to make sure it's clear energy. I do a lot of protection sprays for your etheric body. And then when I connect with the person, I pull oracle cards. And then I'll read you per what the oracle cards are saying. We do a meditation together. It's about 4 minutes long, and it just helps us get grounded in the right mind space for the reading. I say a prayer to access the records, and I use your name, whatever name that you're resonating with at this time. And then I ask the pinnacle, the record keepers, to open your records. And then a lot of times people have questions about, what they should be doing with their career, why they're having issues with their family. There's just so many different questions that you ask. And then some people just want to see what comes up for them. They just say, tell me whatever comes up. And so I will just go within and ask your spirit guides too, if they have anything that they want to convey, or any ascended masters, teachers, gurus that want to come through and give you some support as well. Towards the end of the session, I read the closing prayer. We do some breath work together to bring us back to the here and now, because it is like stepping into a dimensional plane of healing. Your frequency gets raised really high we're in the record, so you can get like a very floaty feeling. So we do some breath work and we do some grounding together. But overall, I have a lot of people that just want to see what comes up. There are some people that do want to do intentional questions, but most people are just curious as to what's in there. And so I will just relay to you whatever I'm seeing that's in your energy body, or what's going to be the most helpful for you in this moment right now.
Have you ever had anybody, this might be like a really weird question out of context, so I hope nobody clips me on this, but have you ever had anybody, like, when you say that you raise their vibration, have you ever had anybody like twitch, like just like twitch or anything like that? I know it's a weird question.
It's not a weird question, because it's changing the physiology in your body, not permanently, but it can cause you to get like goosebumps all over your body, or if I'm giving you messages that are resonating like deep within your soul that you maybe haven't thought about before, and you're like, ooh, that's in alignment with me. It can make your body kind of like shake, like, oh yeah. I also have a lot of pets that if you have a pet, they almost always come into the screen. They're like guardian checks. They're like, hey, what are you doing? Getting in my person's energy body. I'm going to check you and make sure that your energy is okay. And they're also coming in for support. So if you have a pet, most oftentimes a cat, a dog, they'll come into the screen when I'm working with you and just do that energy check on you.
Well, the reason I ask that is because your body, everybody's body, and I'm almost certain every single person ever has experienced this, but like shivering too. Mm-hmm. So like when there's an energy change in your body, it could be a temperature change. In this case, we're talking frequency. And I've experienced this when I've hypnotized people too, is people will like twitch, like random parts of their body will just like just twitch. And if you even Google like, why do we shiver? What's happening is your energy change. So your temperature suddenly is dropped. Mm-hmm. So what shivering even is your muscles are tightening and contracting, trying to create friction basically to warm you up. That's what shivering is, right? Mm-hmm. And so when there's any kind of an energy change in your body's going to twitch. It's going to move. It's going to like get freaky and weird. So that's why I asked you that, because it's just interesting. Some people don't even, like practitioners don't even realize sometimes that that's happening, but it does.
I've had a lot of people that have to go get a sweater or have to take one off because their energy is like fluctuating like that throughout the reading. And so like you're saying too, like it just changes your physiology when frequencies are moving around like that. Especially when we're tapping into, okay, so this is the thing too. So when you're tapping into past lives, and I don't know if you've noticed this as well, you can embody sometimes that past version of yourself from a past life. And so it can feel wonky in your body because it's almost like a different consciousness that's coming in that you're remembering. And so it can make your mannerisms different as well. Or like, why am I feeling this? And somebody all of a sudden feel completely different than they were. And I'm like, oh, that's part of that consciousness coming online while I'm reading for you and trying to relay information. And so it can change a lot of different things while we're in there.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced like the embodiment of the past life. I've also experienced what I call spirit rescue too.
I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, we'll have to save that for your show.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes, we will definitely talk about that then. That sounds super interesting.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting. All this weird stuff. And like I was saying earlier, if you would have been talking to me about this a year ago, I would have said that, like, if I would have been listening to this, I'd have been like, these people are full of shit.
Same, because 5 or 6 years ago, I was on a completely different path in my life, and I would have been like, that's a bunch of baloney. So I understand where you're coming from as well. And I just tell people, like, if they're wanting to get into this, do the things that resonate in your body and feel true for you, and then leave the rest. Like, only go with things that feel good for you and are resonating and feel in alignment with who you are at the time.
One thing that I recommend as well, because there's like a huge, almost like awakening of people that are wanting to get into this side of it, like the helping part of it, like the doers, not the getters. There should be, in my opinion, a lot more getters than doers. So stupid. Okay. Practitioners. There should be less practitioners than clients. There should be a lot more clients, because my thought on it, and I actually spoke to a woman named Joanne DiMaggio, who's been practicing this kind of stuff for like 30 years or so. And she has the same viewpoint on it as I do, where I think that people who are wanting to get into this need to do the work first. So you need to go in and work on all your stuff and get yourself worked on before you can start going and working on others. Because what are you going to do when something happens and you don't know how to handle it because you didn't have it happen to yourself?
That is an excellent point, and I agree with you. And you can only meet people with how deeply you've met yourself. And I think it's very important to do experience-based helping, because I know, even with therapists, not talking about therapists, I love therapists, but you can tell the difference between when you're talking to somebody that has been through the same thing and when they haven't. And like, to really help somebody like on a very deep level, it's different when you know that person has gone through that. And so when I started reading Akashic Records, it was, I had so much that I had not processed through in my own life. And when I started reading for people, the universe said, oh, okay, you want to help other people? Well, then we're going to give you, everyone that you're going to read for is going to be experiencing trauma or things that you have as well. And it's going to force you to do an immense amount of shadow work. So it was like getting slammed in the face with everything that I had bypassed and not wanted to deal with. And they said, if you really want to help people, you have to sift through all of this stuff first. And so I totally agree with you that is very necessary.
Okay, Brittany. So if you don't mind telling me your website, your podcast, all of your social medias, what do you got going on? I would love for people to have the opportunity to reach out to you.
Yes. Okay. So you can find me at Soul Harmony Healing. You can find me on Instagram, on TikTok. You can find me on YouTube. So the podcast that I do, it's called Soul Sessions, and I do them live on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, and I repost them up on YouTube for the replay. So you can find all the episodes on YouTube. And for my website, it is www.soulharmonyhealing.as.me, soulharmonyhealing.as.me. And then also for classes, I'm teaching an empath class coming up. I teach a lot of empath classes. And so if you're a light worker and empath, you can go to my website and see when I have those posted for the future.
Perfect. Well, links to those, all those are going to be in the description of this episode or the show notes or whatever you want to call it. So definitely go over and check out Brittany. Hit her up if you feel drawn to her. Now, one thing that I usually like to ask different practitioners and even just average people is, do you have some kind of a message that you would like to leave for my audience?
Oh, yes. Okay. So my message would be self-love and self-care are the most important. I feel like a lot of times that we bypass our own needs and wants, but we can only give as much as we give ourselves. And so it's very important that you focus on yourself a lot of times. I feel like we have so many people that we need to take care of, but you can't pour from an empty cup. And a lot of times society tells us it's very selfish to take care of yourself first. You need to be a servant to others. I don't think that we need to be a servant to others. I think we need to be a servant to ourselves. And that is where you can come from a very giving place. So my main message is self-love and self-care is the most important. You are the most important person in your life.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Brittany, for coming on to my show. I really, really appreciate you sharing your time with me.
Yes, thank you so much. I had so much fun. This was great, and I'm very excited to have you on my podcast as well.
That's it for today's episode. I would like to thank Brittany for coming on to the show, and I would also like to thank you for tuning in. Head on over to my Facebook or my Twitter to follow me there for some bonus content and stuff. Definitely head over to Brittany's stuff and follow her there as well. Also, don't forget to leave me a good review and a high rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen. If you like the show, I'd appreciate you subscribing in your podcast player and sharing the show around with anyone you think might be interested, or even someone who you think would be interested in coming onto the show. If you're interested in coming onto the podcast and talking with me about your experiences, send me an email. My email is theregressionsession@gmail.com, and I would love to have you on the show. So I told this story on my Facebook, and I usually like to leave some stuff here at the end for anybody who listens this far as like some bonus content. But one time I was in Yellowstone and this cyclist who was like cycling through Yellowstone National Park, he like rides up to me, and I was playing Pokemon Go with my wife and my brother and my sister, and he comes up to me, he's like, "Hey, can you like tell me where the nearest McDonald's is?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." But I had Pokemon Go open on my phone and I didn't want to stop playing, so I just started like scrolling through Pokestops on the game trying to find like which Pokestop was the McDonald's, right? So my brother, instead of just like going with it, he just points out like, "Oh my god, are you playing Pokemon Go?" And then the cyclist gives me this dirty look and he's like, "Thanks for nothing."